test corrections. And again, this is something we'll probably be working on a lot. I mean, I think this is different for you guys. It's different for us. So we're trying to do this as fair as possible. I think some just general questions. I think in general, more explanation and description would be helpful for the long answer problems, the one where there's math. I think people are really used to just kind of doing the equations and not really explaining much. But the more you can sort of help us know like why you picked one equation and why you're doing it the way you do with some words, it would help us, but I think would also help you guys. For the multiple choice, so those ones are a little bit more conceptual, and we kind of had the opposite problem for those. We had a few people who wrote like little books about the questions. You know, and so I think most of these things you can explain in like 2 to 3 sentences. You know, the conceptual ones, like maybe a small paragraph. So if you're going bigger than that, you might want to back up and think about it, because you know, it gets harder for us to grade those. You know, it seems like some people were just trying to sort of say whatever they could, and hoping maybe one of the things was a good thing, but just, you know, a little bit less. And then I think again, in general, you know, better scanning would really help us. So that'd be positive. So I think this is something we'll work a lot with, is this idea of the rough draft. All right, so I think, you know, the idea that when someone just doesn't know how to do it, okay, you've got to show us that you tried, okay, and tried more than like, you know, I gave this 5 minutes. So we really want to give you, you know, I would say, you know, 15, 20 minutes, half hour. If you can't get it, you really want to show us that you tried. And so I think what we did is we tried to be pretty flexible with this first one. So like I said, I think the average of this first one for the homework was about 85%. So again, but so we're going to get a little bit harsher as the quarter goes. And so I think this is one thing where people definitely, probably a lot of people could do a little bit better, right? You know, try doing some work, even if you're not sure it works. You know, if you know, suppose you try something and you don't think it's right, well, explain why you don't think it's right. Like, you know, why does this not feel correct to you? You know, maybe try to explain how this might be similar or not similar to something from lectures, right? The multiple choice, like one good thing is, you know, can you explain maybe why one of the choices doesn't make sense? Maybe you can't find the right answer, but you could say, well, I know it can't be C because of this. And I think just in general, you know, explain more of what you're doing. You know, try to just sort of explain why you're doing this. You know, again, you know, the best thing if you're completely lost on something would be to try to talk to somebody, us, or you know, Megan, the supplemental instructor, or whatever, somebody to try to get some direction. But if you can't do that, just one of these things would be really helpful. And so we're going to get to the point where if it's not a good rough draft, we're not going to give points for the correction. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And just some comments for the final draft. You know, you definitely want to complete the solution. So if you made a mistake, right, you want to sort of say, okay, I made this mistake, but you want to complete the solution, and, you know, don't skip steps. You know, I think it's always good to reflect on your solution. I'll show you some examples in a second, but a lot of people are like, oh, on this one, I forgot about this, or on this one, you know, try to tell us what you did, or whatever. You know, I would say our goal is that you want to have a solution that, you know, somebody else in this class could look at and sort of be like, oh, I get this problem now. Okay, so that would be sort of our goal. You know, definitely, you know, try to contextualize your algebra, right? So as I think with the long answer problems with equations, you know, more explanation would be good. I think that's one thing we're not used to doing in STEM classes, but you know, like in math or whatever. But I think it can really helpful, especially in physics, to kind of explain a little bit. And I think the other big thing is, so there was some people that they were, you know, maybe it got pretty close to where they were sort of just literally copying the solution. And so you want to try to use your own words in the solution, right? Especially for some of the conceptual ones. If you can't really explain it in your own words, then you should, you know, try to talk to somebody to try to help work you through that. You know, I know it's not easy. So that's just sort of some of the comments that we had after going through and doing this here. Okay, so let's see, yeah, so I think people are talking about PDF scanners and stuff. So again, I'm going to try to post something with just some suggestions for people to download things. Yeah, so basically all this stuff, right, that we're talking about here applies to quizzes. Basically, the quiz is just sort of a shorter homework, right? But the same sort of idea. We're going to have a draft and then the corrections. So it's the same sort of idea. So basically, all of this stuff is going to be the same. So for tonight, what's going to happen is the quiz will be uploaded at 5, and you have from 5 to 5:50 to do it. And then we're going to give you 10 minutes until 6 to upload everything. Now, we understand that there can be tricky parts to that, right? But the rule is if for some reason you upload it late, you got to send me an email and tell me why you uploaded it late. Another thing is just be real careful. So typically what we do is when we have something due on Gradescope, we have the due date, right? But then we usually allow people to have late submissions, okay? And so what that is for is if, like, you know, whatever, sometimes people have like an issue or something comes up and they have to submit it late. So first of all, you know, if you're sort of doing this all the time, you know, we're going to eventually not give you credit for it, right? If it's late, you got to let me know it's late and why it was late, right? And we'll sort of make a judgment as to whether it'll be a penalty or not. But if you're getting it passed, so it's actually possible to upload it late and get a penalty, right? But you got to be, I mean, I think it's pretty clear, but you just got to be careful on that. So a couple of people, I think, did that this time. No, so someone said if we end up finishing earlier, you can upload it anytime you want, right? And so basically, you know, the Gradescope will open at 5, and in theory, you could upload your test at 5:01 if you wanted. Other questions on this? Anybody? Portia, you got a question? You're unmuted.
I was wondering for the multiple choice, what I had been doing was explaining why I chose the answer I chose and why I didn't choose every other option. Is that no longer necessary?
I mean, that sounds good to me, but I think if you know, if you have a good explanation of why it's the right answer, that should be enough, right?
Okay.
Sure. I mean, yeah. So I think in general, just, you know, it was kind of funny with the multiple choice. We were kind of like, some people could probably use shorter answers, and then with the ones that were more mathy, we thought people could maybe have a little bit more writing in there would be probably a positive thing. Other comments or questions?
Also, is the quiz on Canvas?
Yeah, the quiz will be uploaded on Canvas. So the quiz will be on, but it's going to be basically like it's just like your homework. I'll upload a PDF of the quiz, and you write the quiz on your own paper or on your tablet or whatever, and then upload it. So it's just like the homework. It's just that you only have 50 minutes to do it instead of having a longer time.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, so another good question. So about the grade. So again, we're going to try to work with everybody here. If you look at your homework and don't think your homework was graded correctly, there's a mechanism that's open now on Gradescope to ask for a regrade. And so and that'll be the TAs will be handling that. If for some reason you're not happy with the TA's answer, you can eventually ask me, right? But I think at first what we'll do is sort of go through that. So if you have, for some reason, you don't think that yours was graded correctly, just send a regrade through Gradescope. It's pretty easy to do. And then, like I said, if for some reason that doesn't work, again, we try to think to be flexible on this one. But as time goes on, we're going to be a little bit less flexible with that. Ziwan, you got a comment? You're unmuted.
So we only submit, we can only, if we write it on like a tablet or iPad, we only need to submit one file, right?
Yeah. You mean like one sort of page, or what do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
Because for the homework, it's like for individual question, we have to submit different picture. If I'm doing like a PDF on like on, for example, OneNote, for this quiz, do we only submit one file at all?
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be nice if you could try to, like what I usually do, like I don't know OneNote so well. The thing I use on my tablet allows me to make different pages. So I don't know if yours does, but I make different pages. Like if I was doing this, I would have like, multiple choice 1 and make a new page, multiple choice 2, because again, it's gonna be the same sort of idea. You're gonna take your draft and do corrections on it. And so the easier that you can do that, the better, right? Does that make sense?
Okay. Also, do we submit by 6 o'clock?
Yeah. So the idea is it's like 50 minutes for the quiz and then 10 minutes to upload. We did that, last quarter in the spring when it was more of a traditional quiz, and that seemed to work pretty well. And so I think, with this being a less stress quiz, hopefully that will work fine here too.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so on the grade scope, you need to match your response with the question. Okay, so when you upload your PDF, like again, like if I did it, I'd upload 9 pages, and then you just sort of say, this is question 1, this is question 2. You kind of go on from there. Okay, I think most people, when I looked through, did it pretty well with that part there. But if you know, if for some reason that didn't happen, you might have to submit a regrade on that too. Okay, other questions or concerns before we move on? This here. Okay. And here's just some examples of some students that I thought were good examples. And so here's this one, this number 1 here. You know, this person had a nice explanation here, and it was kind of a perfect explanation. So they just said, check, got the answer and explanation correct. You know, like, and I think by reading it through, you can get a good sense. You know, there was a lot of examples of people that would sort of say, you know, they would sort of, you know, maybe talk about, you know, this, you know, some of these elements here. So you could kind of, like, I could read it and kind of say, oh, I think I see where they're coming from. But again, you want it to be so that someone could read this and be like, oh, I get that now. Okay, and so that was one thing, is that, you know, sometimes I think it can be tricky with that there. Here's an example of another one that I thought that the TAs and me thought was good. So here's an example of one. So this person, you know, didn't get it right the first time. Okay, and so, so here's their first sort of stuff on it. They didn't get it right over here, but then they went through and did the correction. And then what's really nice is this here was really helpful for us, is they sort of said, okay, so, you know, in this problem, I did not consider breaking the dotted line in half. And so they sort of commented on the things that they didn't do and some of the little errors they made, and they went through and kind of, you know, corrected for it. And so I thought that was a really good job. So you know, for that one there. And then here's another one. So here's another one where you know, the person, you know, sort of just, this is number 8, which I think was one of the trickier ones, it seemed like. And so they had their answer. And what happened is they, you know, there was actually, like, I think 5 different infinite sheets. And so they forgot 2 of them. All right, and so they, you know, in their corrections, they sort of went through and said, okay, so here's my corrections, here's the corrected work, and then again, they just sort of made this nice comment, you know, not too long. You know, in the draft solution, I did not realize that I have to include the E field of the other charged plates. So it's just kind of good, you know, to reflect on what you're doing. It can be helpful for us sometimes too, I think. So again, that's just a couple of examples.